Hello, and welcome to the Vlogging Pod. Tonight, we are joined by Mark Jamilkowski. Welcome to the room, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. So, prior to this segment, we were talking a little bit about your book.
Mhm.
And so, The Road to Moresco, I'm sorry, I just pronounced your name, Moresco.
It's all good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Here I am. I'm all sensitive about making sure I get your name right, and then I wanna do it again.
I don't mean to cause you more stress in your life. I apologize. Yeah.
No, you're
We all
fine.
need more compassion and grace in our lives. So if you want to rename my book for me,
I'm telling you, pronunciation is just not my forte.
says the woman learning of blogging.
I know, right?
But
Well, you know what's funny about that? I started dabbling in audiobooks of my own at
mhm,
first,
mhm,
and
mhm.
I have 15 books, so I wanted to be able to do all of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, don't think it's too much great at that because you either love me or hate me, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I get it
creative.
completely.
Yeah, it's a creative experience for me. But I started doing the podcasts to make myself more articulate, not have those long pauses, a more flowing statement. So, yeah, I just never took into account that I would need to pause and have Google pronunciate for me when I do a podcast.
Is- what do you mean? What do I have to do?
Okay, wait a minute. Are you still here? Okay, it said
No,
that you left the room. Okay, there you are.
what I did was the other part was still open.
Oh, okay. Because it
So
shows me that you're not here, but you're still talking, so we're good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it was my phone was still connected and I didn't realize so I swiped it up and it disconnected on that end. So we should be fine.
Okay. All right. I'll let you know if I can't hear you at all. Then I'll be like in your messenger, like, yo, Mark. So, okay. So you tell me what the book title is and tell me what inspired you about writing the book.
Sure. Road to Moresco was somewhat of an accident. I was at a particular place in my life in my late 40s and early 50s about 10 years ago, and I was facing some challenges that I ended up seeking help for. And in working with that therapist, they really forced me to reconsider a lifelong position I had about being an adopted child.
Mhm.
My parents were loving and supportive, and for all intents and purposes, I was completely content and happy, and I had absolutely no compunction whatsoever to go visit my biological parents. One day, I decided that maybe I would listen to a therapist finally, as actually what you pay them for at some point. You do listen to them. And went about the journey of trying to find my biological parents. And that included like accessing the Library of Congress, which has yellow pages from like the 1960s. And I was able to find the agencies that would have handled the adoption and calling them up. And I ended up calling up this one agency, and the woman's like, no way. And I was myself, oh, what does that mean? She goes, literally have your file on my desk right now. I was going
Wow.
through, she was going through some old files and they were digitizing stuff. And my file was literally at the top of her pile on her desk at that moment in time. So there's, the universe is sending signals or something, right?
Mhm.
Maybe. So eventually I ended up meeting a woman. Her name's Clara Moresco. And as I got to meet her, and we confirmed, went through the whole the hoops and everything. And I don't want to give too much of the story away. There's a bit of a reveal there, but I was fascinated by her life and the circumstances that led to my origin, but more so where she came from and ultimately the relationship that she had with her mother. Just started asking a lot of questions. Somewhat of an investigative reporter type of mentality overcame me.
Mhm.
I will admit that I think I used part of my time with her and that investigative reporter mentality as a shield to protect myself against the emotional encroachment that was potentially going to create, meeting this new
Mhm.
person and kind of facing ultimately whatever this new relationship was going to be for me.
That's
And
kinda natural, though. That's kinda
yeah,
natural. I think we all do that a little bit, so don't feel shamed about that. I think that's
yeah,
natural.
I'm just being
We're all
honest.
reserved. Yeah. Right,
Yeah.
we're all reserved a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to even vocalize that feeling.
Mhm.
So to give you an idea, I just was so very much a finance guy. I'm very much into math. I mean, very walled off
Right.
from the softer elements of things. So being able to connect with these types of emotions and whatnot was a relatively new experience for me. But as I got to know more about her relationship with her mother, I began to question and learning more about myself along the way. I'm all still going through therapy and all this other stuff. So I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about her. I'm learning about her mother, learning how to ask better questions about her and her mother and their relationship to help me better understand what the nature of influence was between her mother and her and how that manifested itself and how she lived her life and so on. You get and peeling back the onion of her life and all the influences that were there for her. And I was taking notes. At some point, I realized I had like 18 pages of notes
Mhm.
in outline format. And I said, this is a story that should be told. I never went to school for writing. I have no background in it. Like I said, I consider myself to be a very technical person, creative arts. I did not consider myself to be, a thing for me. So I
Mhm.
figured no one's going to be able to understand my outline and understand this story the way I see it in my head. So I'm going to write this out. Figure 10 pages per page of outlines, 180 pages thereabouts. I think I can round it off to 200 with some other extraneous information and background on the historical time period.
Mhm.
And I can find a ghostwriter and they can take it and they can make it into something. And then the story will be out. And worst case scenario, I have something interesting to hand out at Christmas and for all my family members. And best
Mhm.
case scenario, somebody decides to make a movie out of it. So the reality was going to fall someplace between it's going to end up in somebody's garbage bin or it's going to give me a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There's going to be something in between. And to be honest, I had really no designs of becoming an author in any way, shape, or form. I really didn't know what to do with it. I reached out. I don't know if are you familiar with the app called Nextdoor?
No, actually, I'm not.
It's like one of these things where people from local it centralizes people into local communities, so you can post things like, "Hey, I got a couch," anybody, that kind of stuff.
Okay, alright.
So I did a post on there and I said, listen, I'm looking for ghostwriters and I got a couple people who were interested, and they said, yeah, it's a pretty good story. I could see where you need some help, but they didn't really help me at all. So it floundered. I just sort of sat there and I didn't really know what to call it. The
Mhm.
project is just a project. I happened to be in Austin for a business meeting and I just happened to be taking a walk by the Capitol building. I had some free time and lo and behold, they were having a book fair.
Ah.
I didn't know it was a book fair at the time. I thought it was like a farmer's market, whatever. I always saw was white tents. And I said, yeah, let's go check it out. So I walk into the first tent and this kind woman greets me and explains the layout. And she says, this is the publisher's tent, blah, 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 blah. I said, wait a second. What'd you say? Publisher's tent. Hey. Let me tell you about what I got going on. I got this. So, I got this project and I describe it. And she goes, oh, you have a manuscript. And I'm like, yeah, a manuscript. That's what I have. Yeah, no, again, I have no clue what I'm doing here in this whole
Mhm.
thing. And by the way, I would like to take this moment to say I believe everybody has a story to tell, and
Right.
I really believe that, and I get the writing itself is a scary proposition, and that there are a lot of rules and structure and comments that people will make that will be scary to people, that make
Mhm.
people want to question whether they can have the skills to actually write something that will
Oh,
be acceptable.
I
And
fully understand it. I laugh not at you, but because I've went down this line.
right.
So, yeah, I get you.
So here's me writing a book without knowing any of those rules exist.
Mhm.
You know, when I first finished the manuscript, and eventually that woman who I talked about in the tent, she took me on as a client, and she's my editor and publisher.
Oh,
But when
nice.
she gave me this sheet of paper, she goes, here's a cheat sheet for historical fiction writers, some traps to avoid. Take a look at what you wrote and see if any of those traps exist. And one of the first traps is overuse of the word was or had.
Mm.
In my short 200 pages of nonsense that I wrote, of which, by the way, there was zero dialogue, zero.
Mhm.
I had 780 uses of the word was, and which, you know, and I think I think you're allowed something like one per page or something.
Okay.
So, clearly I did not know what the hell I was doing. And but I kinda knew I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted a ghostwriter all along, right?
Right.
She read the book. She read the first chapter, and she said, "Listen, I can certainly hook you up with a ghostwriter, but this is your story. This is most definitely your voice. I can hear you. You need to tell the story. I'll work with you. We'll go through this." It took us about a year to go through the whole thing and edit it, and then when it was ready, Amazon, Kindle, direct book, wonderful platform. You can load the telephone book up, press publish. You're a published author. Congratulations.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, you're a published author." I say, and when I get 100 reviews on Amazon for one book, then I'll say I'm a published author. Until then, I'm just a guy who wrote something. I'm not taking that. I'm not taking the title. You have to fight me for that.
Mhm.
Um, So there we are, and we get to and then to tell you the scariest day, pressing that little publish thing, because that's really opening up the kimono for the world. Boy,
Oh,
that,
yes.
very scary
Yes.
stuff. So I published, and that was the journey towards being a published author. That gives you the whole kit and caboodle, and it was a very emotional rereading my words and editing the scenes. Man, it really drags up a lot of stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
you don't even realize I never realized just how much of myself I had poured into the pages that ultimately became what was published. And yeah, it was a fascinating ride. And then to have people read it and say, "Wow, this book changed my life." I was like, wow.
Mhm.
I was only one person, mind you, out of, who said that. But the
Yeah.
fact that
Well,
you can have that
at least
impact on one person is
at
pretty
least it
cool.
wasn't your mother, because that's what I get. That's my fame to claim, "Hey, my mom liked it."
Right, 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 right. And that's another thing. That's another part about this.
Mm.
That's kind of hard for me. Is really when it comes to this particular book, is that my mom, right,
Mhm.
she during the process of me getting this book published, she was starting to slip into some states of dementia.
Oh.
So my mom has never actually been able to read what I wrote. She knows I published something. She can hold it in her hands, and
Mhm.
she recognizes my name on the page, but she can't she'll never read it. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a sad. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. It's just part of the stuff that we all deal with, right?
Yeah, I understand that aspect. My father left this world and never read anything that I'd written.
Mhm.
So, I understand that, but, I mean, he had plenty of time here on this earth that he could have, but he didn't. And I understand that I understand that kinda loss,
Right,
but
right.
it was kind of a chosen aspect for him, so,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
so
Yeah,
no, no,
I
you're
can yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
That's the way life is. We
Yeah.
all have that, at one point in our life, we're gonna visit that path.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But when we talk about paths and our lives in general, what do you feel since this was your first book, correct? We did
Yeah,
establish that. Okay.
and I've actually and because of the feedback and
Mhm.
because I'm not familiar with the process, again, the first one by accident, didn't really think of myself as an author. I was kind of like, "Psst, I got a book. Where now I've learned since then, oh no, you need to do like 6 months before you publish the book. Need to releasing advanced reader copies and you need to start getting reviews from various people and you need to start doing promotions on
Mhm.
social media and you need to find some
It's
influencers to pump the market and you need to do this,
it's
you need to do
yeah.
that. And then you can have a launch party, which you'll then promote on social media all over again, and
Yeah.
then have limited book signings. And you still haven't released the book because
Right.
I don't know why. Yeah, you haven't. I don't know. You gotta hold it back. I don't know.
It's a job inside of a job.
It
And
really. I'm not a marketing guy at all.
yeah,
So yeah.
most people don't realize that. And in order to make the money for books, you have to put money into it. And even if you have a publishing, unless you're a very high ranking name, it's pretty much your time that you're going to put into it.
Right. Right. It
And
has to be
people don't
something that
understand.
you enjoy doing.
Oh, yeah. People don't understand that. And there was a time in the very beginning, years and years ago when I first started. I'm in my 50s now, but I started
Hmm.
before this time in my life. But the biggest thing is in order to make money on the one book, okay, you have to put money back into it, and people don't seem to get that.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, well, you just bought this, you just bought that." And I think a lot of ideology about being an author, and maybe because we're closer to the same age bracket, you might see this as well. People think of the patches on the elbows and the
Yeah.
scum
Yeah.
on the
Yeah. Yeah.
side,
Yeah. Right.
and
Right.
so
Right.
that you think, "Oh, well, if you're a writer, you must be raking it in." And but the problem with that is that yeah, you're laughing because we both know the reality of it. If you do not have a passion to write, and this is something that I've got asked. I've done the book events, I've done all that little stuff and had my time in the limelight, I guess you wanna say,
Sure. Sure.
mildly, but I've been there.
Mhm.
I think the one big advice that I would tell anyone is that if you do not love it, do not do it,
Right.
because it is something you will put your heart and soul into. And also you need a thick skin because soon as the reviews come in, for a while, you're gonna get some really good one because typically it's your circle, the
Right.
people that
Right.
you
Right. Right.
know, even if it means business or friendly, it's your circle, your community. And
Right.
typically that time you're gonna get a lot of good reviews, but then after a time the book sits there and you put more time in and those people, because they like you and they like the book, they're gonna push it out for you. So at one point, it's gonna reach hands of somebody that isn't familiar with you, and that is when the real truth comes out.
Right.
And yeah, and so you gotta have a thick skin.
I try to head that off at the pass, and I probably I probably cut my marketing appeal down by a good 70% because right up front, I be brutally honest about it. It's like,
Mhm,
this is a thick book. It's gonna make you laugh. It's gonna make you cry. It's only 300 pages, but it's dense, and it's
mhm.
philosophy, and it's emotional, and it's strong women characters, and you're going to have feels. And sorry, but if you're not into historical fiction where history is a main character in the book, in addition to the
Mhm.
actual characters we're talking about, then chances are you should not read my book. Even with that
Yeah.
up front, people like on Goodreads will pick the book up on a promo. And
Mhm.
then they'll say, "Yeah, I couldn't really connect with the characters, DNF." I'm like, all right, well,
Yeah.
okay, I get that. I mean, I appreciate the time you took to read it. I'm sorry it didn't connect with you. I'll try better next time. And nope,
Mhm.
and it doesn't. I don't care. I don't really care what the rating that they give is. Quite frankly, I remember I said 100 reviews. Didn't I say 100
Right.
good reviews? I just said 100.
I I learned the hard way. I distanced myself from it. I pulled back a lot. I used to speak with them and try to be upfront and you know what I mean, involved, I guess you wanna say.
Sure.
But I pulled back from it all. I I gotten one review, and I've told this story quite a bit. It's probably people are listening to my podcast like, "Oh, here she comes. She's gonna say it. She's gonna say it." I did a series and the DHC, and I think it was about I think it was book 3 in the series, and well, book 2 I got a lot of heat from because people were not happy that it didn't go the way they wanted it to do, but
Okay.
book 3 was specific. I got a review, and I think it was like 3 stars. Don't quote me on that because I would have to go back and look, but I think it's about 3 stars. And it was like a 5 paragraph. I mean, not short, sweet paragraphs. I mean, long, lengthy paragraphs
Like they
talking
really put
about,
some effort into it.
oh my gosh, yes. This is probably more of a book than my book was. They were just going through the details and what I needed to do and what was wrong with it, and just very detailed. And but again, this was back the time when I would take the time to read the reviews, and this is why I pulled back.
Hmm.
It was a heavy lesson learned. And basically, they just went through the whole thing, just tearing me to shreds, okay? And then the very last paragraph. No, I take it back. It was book 4, okay? It was book 4. And
Okay.
then they were like, "But where's book 5?"
So they wanted resolution. They wanted resolution. They
Oh
weren't
my gosh.
happy. They weren't happy with the
Yeah.
way things were left. They wanted resolution.
Yeah. They ripped me to shreds and then wanted to know where book 5 was. And, well, I mean, I did go, but it went off into another series, which, by the way, I published last year, so it's been a while. But
Congratulations.
anyways, yeah, well, several years later, but we won't go into that detail. But when you so we've pretty much established you've learned a lot from how you write, how do you put it out there?
Yeah.
But being that this came from learning more about your adoption,
Hmm.
what do you think that you learned more about yourself now from this experience?
Oh, the main lesson really was the connectivity of all of us.
Mm,
In the prologue, I use an example. I'm talking about the setup for the story and how it's a very personal journey, and it has a lot to do with family and Roman history and the history of Italy, and there's a lot that needs to be set up. Otherwise, you don't understand fully the connectivity of what the characters are thinking about and what their emotions are in the moment, and the rise of nationalism in early 1900s Italy kind of idea that has its setting in 1860, which has its setting in 1600s, which has its setting in, you keep going.
mm,
Anyway, my point here being that the main thing that I learned from writing it was how our lives are the accumulation of things that have come well before us. There are drops of water dripping off of icicles at the top of a mountain that collect into little rivulets that form into a stream that ultimately dump into a brook, or brooks into streams, or however that goes. And the streams commingle and they become a river. That river rages down through the mountain and across the plains and empties out into the ocean. And that's what our lives are like. Our lives, we are drops of water in this massive river that is the accumulation of our ancestors and our history, and we're influenced by twists and turns in the stream, and twists in the angle at which we descend, and rocks in the middle of it that we bump into and have to work our way around, but we find a way. We
mm.
find a way forward. Our lives are a perpetual motion machine. We continuously move forward, whether we want to or not. We have no choice, but we are all connected to everything that we touch. And
Right.
that was a phenomenal kind of awakening, if you will, as I was composing it, because initially I thought I was writing a biography, more or less, of these two women. First, her mother, and going back to her birth, early 1900s. And now because I wanted to be able to tell the story of how she was influenced by her history and her parents and her environment. And that's how it influenced the way she treated her daughter and the way her daughter grew up and what her daughter was thinking and what her daughter was doing as she was living her life that ultimately led to decisions that led to me. Right. And
Mhm.
it all has an impact. So really, I'm tracing my own origin back to, the advent of the Roman Empire kind of idea in many ways, and kind of drawing those links back. Not that and I would say that just by another asterisk here, I don't focus on myself at all in this. The story
Mhm.
is not about me. It's not about my investigation. It is not about me knocking on a door at all. It is all about these two women and their lives and how they live them, good, bad, or indifferent. And I've had people, to your point, critics come in and say, well, these aren't very nice people. It's hard to really connect with them. It's like, well, then they live their lives. I'm telling it to you true and straight. I'm not sugarcoating it.
Right.
I'm not trying to
Well,
make them sympathetic characters so that you can fall in love with them. I'm trying to tell you,
right.
these people lived hard lives and they persevere and they
Well,
prospered and they were awesome and inspirational. And for what they did and what they had to face was really
mhm.
phenomenal stuff. So take that for what it is.
If you
And that's the thing that I took away from most from and doing the whole book.
if you think about it, if a book was written about any one of us in this kind of way, and when you had the response of you weren't nice people, I mean, if you had yourself had to go through survival instinct, people
Hmm.
might not think the same thing about us, you know what I mean? If we had to escalate into different parts of our life to survive, you know?
Hmm.
And it's not like a day-to-day thing when you have a casual conversation with like, "Oh, that's a nice person." So if you take the entirety of someone's life and you have to pull it apart, like, in such a way, I think we could all come off that way.
I think what's interesting about these women, and I think what's interesting about each of us is that we
Mhm.
face conflicts. We face conflicts and challenges every day. Sometimes we make decisions that we look back on and say, "Wow, I was inspired. That was an inspired decision. I don't know how I decided to do that just that well, but somehow I did it right." And then there are other decisions we look back on and say, well, yeah, I guess some remorse on that one. That probably wasn't the best.
Mhm.
It wasn't the best choice in that moment. But if you think back on it in the moment, give yourself some compassion and grace. You made the best decision in that moment that you thought you were going to make. And even though in hindsight, it looks like a wrong decision, in the moment that you thought it was the right one. And I
Right.
think that those things, understanding that we all face challenges and we all face conflict and we all deal with it in a slightly different way, and then having the grace and compassion to forgive ourselves for whatever those decisions, ramifications ultimately turn out to be. It's not to say to act recklessly, but rather to spend too much time looking backwards and trying to judge ourselves is not a good use of our time.
Would you mind if I take a perspective point here?
Sure.
Okay. When you talk about when I asked you things you've learned about your own life from because you had to take so much of a deep journey in this, and you talk about the river and life goes on, and I fully get that. And it does, no matter if we just sat in the same place 24/7, life still moves on. We
Exactly.
still age, we still this. But the miraculous point to this, and I think you illustrate as much, we choose when we choose to go on in an inspirational way or make impact even in our own lives, that is truly living. That we have, you know what am I making sense here? It's
Yeah.
how you choose to live it. Yeah, life always goes on. We don't have a choice on that. We still age, we still get the gray hairs, we still do whatever. But we can either choose to stay stationary and not make a more I don't wanna not just impactful, but a journey worth living. You know, we have that option. And when you make the journey worth it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
To then it's something I just find phenomenal. And you did that.
I don't know about that.
Yes, you did.
I don't know. I mean,
Yes, you did.
I
You
I
d
I put myself out there more because I really felt their story needed to be heard.
right, but in doing so, you've impacted yourself. Even what you said,
No, that's true.
you had went through therapy. You
Yep.
and 10 years ago, you would have never done anything that you've been doing.
Correct. That's true.
You see the growth? You see you took a leap, a change, and went forward with something, and you were like 100 times more, you know what I mean? You put
That's
yourself out there even
no,
more.
that's true, and I would
Mhm,
even go so far as to say that in so much as I went through the process of being empathetic and
mhm,
connecting with these women, and you're like, "Oh, well, you're a man. How can you connect with these women?" Like, but it's situational, and kind of thinking about what their motivations are in the moment. You know, why do I have to go back to 1860 to begin my story? Well, I'm thinking about Maria Luisa Moresco, my maternal biological grandmother,
mhm,
and she's a child prodigy at the piano, born in the early 1900s. She's being influenced by what her parents are thinking about, and so on, right? It just keeps
mhm,
peeling back. And you have to kind of sit there and understand what her parents were thinking about and what was the environment she grew up in and what was it like for her to go to college for piano and to be tutored by these people around the globe. You really have to be like sitting at the piano stool next to her and kind of experience it at that level to kind of convey the story. But in order to do that, you have to put yourself in that role. So now I'm talking about myself. There's an element of projection that goes on in that, and that necessary connection that you have to have with your inner self. You have no choice but to grow in that circumstance because you immediately realize that you are not enough. You have to go beyond what you know of yourself to be able to connect with this other person in their circumstance, to be able to identify with what they're going to be going through and try to fully imagine all the levels of influence that are going on in that moment of time.
mhm,
And as much as all of that is holding itself together, fast forward and you talk about growth, I firmly believe that what I was able to do in terms of the development of those characters and writing this book ultimately leads me to be a better overall manager and leader for the company that I'm a co-founder and of, you know, the startup that I run with my other co-founders, and what we're trying to achieve there and how I talk with the staff and the way I'm able to develop that team and lead that team. All of those elements are a
mhm.
direct reflection of the personal growth that I
Well, yeah,
experienced during this time period.
especially since you said 10 years ago you wouldn't be able to really have the communications you have right now that
Right.
you're doing because you were all about the numbers. See,
Right.
I do
Correct.
listen. I do listen. I do. I pay attention. So I think this journey has done phenomenal. Just you know what I mean? Not just for what you've learned as far as writing book, but your life in general. I think it's opened you up and made you aware of kind of a commitment to yourself. No? Maybe?
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's
Yeah.
also opened my eyes up to something else that I enjoy doing. If anybody will tell you, I have way too many hobbies as it is. Right? But I do enjoy the academic aspect of the research that goes into creating the historical backdrop and landmarks within which to explore the characters and their development. So my second book, which is currently being edited, is
Mhm.
is very much a book written with purpose along those lines, right? So here again, yeah, the road to Moresco was a tremendous personal journey and a growth element, and that has led to other things, which includes me being purposefully exploring what it means to be an author, as well as being a better manager and co-founder of a startup.
Nice. Is that the mask of Romulus?
Yeah, it is the Mask of Romulus. That's correct. That's, you know,
Now
the
I cheat a little bit because I have your website up on one of my screens.
no, I'm see, but you see what I'm doing? I'm promoting it. You see, I'm like coming
Yeah.
soon. Order now.
It's all those life lessons you just learned.
Exactly. I'm trying to put them to use. You know, uh,
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's really been, and this one has dialogue. I thought my publisher would be all kinds
Nice.
of crazy excited to see dialogue in there. She's like, "Okay, we need to tone down the dialogue and turn more to
There's always a learning curve, it
That's
never
right.
quits.
Never,
But,
I don't think she'd
I
be earning her keep if she just said, "This is perfect. This stuff." That's it.
but I think that's great, especially as we get older, because I think if you're continually learning, I think that keeps our mind agile, it keeps us in the moment. I think
Mhm.
those are very important things that we can do, and you prove that just by doing it continuously and you're starting a new business. But speaking of that, tell our listeners where they can find you and be able to reach out so they can get in touch with that new book.
Well, the website is markjimilkowski author.com, separated by hyphens. So and I'm also on Amazon. So you can find The Road to Moresco and all of its various forms. That was the other thing too, right? Oh, let's do an audiobook. Oh, put paperback. Let's do hardback. What else can we do? Kindle. Yeah, sure. Ebooks. Right. Starting to do a graphic novel interpretation of it too. Why not? Yeah. It's,
There's all there's all kinds of avenues to go with it. It
it's
really
just,
is.
I'm just having fun with it, and I'll see where it goes. And then The Mask of Romulus, as you mentioned, is a completely different, well, not completely different. It is a different thing. It's very much for people who are into ancient Roman history. It centers around the time period of the first emperor of the Roman Empire, Augustus, and it was is again it deals very much with the evolution of a person, right, and the challenges they face and how they have to deal with those circumstances as life brings them to them. So the website's the main point to get a hold of me and whatnot, or through Amazon. I'm on Goodreads as well. So if anybody's on Goodreads and listening to this, and you want to hit me up, just I'm open to making new friends and making new connections. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, and I will be doing a promo again on Moresco as a precursor to pumping the pump, priming the pump for the promo for Mask to Romulus, and trying to get more readership, involvement, and followers.
Well, I really enjoyed our conversation, Mark. I want to
Well, I
thank
don't
you
know.
for
I don't.
doing
You sound a little surprised, but I'll take it as
No, no, no. No, no, no. I know. I'm not surprised. I've just really enjoyed I I generally enjoy a lot of people who come on here. I mean, I can't really say that I've, like, horribly, like, "Oh, no, that was just a horrible." I would never say that. I enjoy it. I enjoy the experience of being able to speak with you guys here, and your message was just very intricate and articulate, and I enjoyed listening.
well. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about my various projects, about myself. I do hope that your readers and listeners, whatever, are as entertained as you hope they will be, and maybe they'll hit me up on Twitter. Or
I'm I'm sure there will be. Actually, our
is it
following
still
has
called
grown.
Twitter? I have to call it X, right?
I no longer have it, but that's a whole other podcast. I had quite a bit of numbers there, but I left it this year.
I don't have Instagram.
I don't either. I
I
don't
don't
either, and I
I don't do Facebook.
nope, me
I'm
neither.
very bad about the whole social media thing. I'm on LinkedIn, but that's really more of a professional thing.
Ah,
It's
I
not
do
really
that
for me as
too.
an author.
I do that too, and my podcast goes out on there. Reddit, well, I gotta stop
Okay.
and think. TikTok, what else?
How about
Um
Pinterest? I'm on Pinterest.
I have Pinterest, I haven't been on there very much anymore. I do Blue Sky,
I
but
see a lot of people joining that. Yeah.
I'm not really as active on there. I'll
Yeah.
tell you what, my numbers have this past year have increased with this podcast. and I'll just be honest with you, I've never done that type of avenue, but I've been more political, which I won't bring here. I don't do that with my guests unless you bring it to the discussion. But I've been more political this year, and since then, my numbers have increased. I've had to make sure I put it in my bio that I do that so people understand that that comes from here. But I try to do it in a way where it's not confrontational. I try to give facts and information,
Hmm.
and because of that, I am surprised my numbers have increased. Usually, it takes me the whole year to get another 1,000 downloads, and this year
Right.
I have surpassed it by 2.
Oh, well,
So,
there you go. All you need to be is a
yeah.
little controversial, say something that's a little bit on the edge, you know,
Yeah.
set yourself on fire for the benefit of the masses,
I
and you will get
right?
thousands of
I Oh, YouTube, there's another one. I'm even getting more following on YouTube, and I actually got a comment, oh gosh, it was the other day, and someone said to me, "I've went through a bunch of things, and you even give me sources," and all that, which I try to do. I try to let people know, especially when it does with politics, because I'm not a politician. I'm
right. Well,
just
I think
simply
that's key in being able to cite your sources, and
yeah.
there's so much misinformation and disinformation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
being
Yeah.
able to cite your sources, like any good author, creating a bibliography for their story would be able to do it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right. And I agree with that 100%. So I am surprised, but so now I'm getting ad revenue from the podcast, which is exciting, but scary. You know what I mean? Because I would have
Oh no,
liked
you've become an
yeah, I know.
influencer.
No, no. It's funny that you say that, and
You
here I oh my gosh, and this podcast is gonna be so long to edit, but you started me talking on an alley here.
know.
What's funny is I actually had a video go viral, and it's not a podcast one, it's just an animation one that I stuck together, and so my TikTok started to follow now, don't get me wrong, my assistant who's in the room, she has way more following than I do. But for what I do, I was like, "What is this?" And I was like I had to, like, mess her because she works with a lot of people. I'm just one of the ones that she works with, and so she has an extended amount of following, and I was like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" Because it started to shoot up. I think it was, like, at 38K or something for one video, and I was like you know what I mean? That's just odd for me,
Mhm, mhm.
and I mean, don't get me wrong, my listeners growing, but it's you have to I'd have to total it on all the platforms. It's not just one area, you know what I mean? It's like all
Mhm.
of them. And still, I don't think I've had one video as far as podcasts go up to 38K listening. I would love that. That'd be phenomenal. Then I would have sponsorship, but that's another story. Anyways, but it's been such a joy to have you, and I'm sorry I've gotten to a spin with my own little jumbo there.
No, no, no. It's fascinating to hear about, the growth and the development of your own
Oh, I've
business
had bouts
model. I
at
mean,
it.
it's
I
all
used to
it
yeah.
comes from a place of genuineness,
Well, I appreciate that. I've had bouts out of it. I used to run a
and I think it's
magazine
beautiful.
well,
Cool.
thank you. I used to run a magazine way back in the day, just an online thing for authors. And we used to do it was it was more basic than what
And
today is. It wouldn't have
easy.
yeah, oh yes, right? I mean, it was still online, but it was more basic than today's standards, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And we still used to get 5,000 hits a month, and we had over 300 authors involved,
Right.
and I always found that phenomenal at the time. I mean, now it would have been like, "What is this?" It would have been my generic graphics and everything on there, but it's funny how things evolve, but that's like what we just talked about earlier, about still learning, still grasping at things, and I think that's phenomenal that you were able to do that, and I think that you're still doing it, so thank you so much for being with us tonight.
No, it's absolutely been my pleasure. I've enjoyed every minute of our conversation.
Well, that's great. Well, come back anytime, please. Hit me up and like, "Yo."
Hey, listen, I'll be making the book signing tour. The bus is on order, back order. I don't know.
Is that coming next year?
I'm hoping that the edits aren't too severe and that I can get the book published in October, actually.
Oh, nice.
So, well, yeah, again, I had somebody say, wow, how do you manage to write a book? I'm like, well, listen, I don't have a contract or anything. No one's pressuring me for a timeline. It took me 3 years to write the first one. If it takes me 2 years to write the second one, that's okay because, it's not like it's like someone saying, oh, it took me 3 years to do a load of laundry. As long as no one's complaining, you can take as long as you want.
I think my husband would have a heart attack if it took me 3 years to do the laundry.
Right. I get that. Well, what the hell is
Well,
he doing?
he does his own, but mine piles up. I used to do it all, but we've reached a time in our life where we're like, he doesn't like how I do his, and I definitely don't like how he does mine. so, so it's but mine would pile up around the machine. So yeah, it would be an issue.
So you get my
Well,
point.
I
As
get it.
long as
I
no
get
one's pressuring you to get it out, it's like, oh, I can take 3 years to do this. That's no problem.
it.
I'm at my own. I'm
Well,
on my own schedule.
I feel that. I feel that. Thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely,
I'm
Gary. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. You like I said, come back anytime.
I will.
I
I will hit
wanna
you up. I will. I'll keep you to that.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it. Thank you to our listeners, as always. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye for now.